One day, your heartbeat will fall silent, and the air that has filled your lungs since the moment you were born will slip away. O Christus Twexelagas. That moment feels distant, but it is closer than you want to admit, because every sunrise carries you nearer to your final sunset. And when it comes, you won't be able to barter for one more minute, or pause the clock until you are finished with your list. That's why you cannot treat death as a rumor or as a shadow that belongs to someone else. You must face it with eyes wide open. The Bible doesn't soften the edges. It is appointed unto men once to die, and after this the judgment. Hebrews 9:27. Death is not the end of you. It is the doorway into eternity. Number 1. Death is not the end. You are more than skin and bones. You are a soul clothed in a body, and when that body breaks down, the soul steps across a threshold into forever. You don't stop existing, you simply change address. Jesus himself described it in John 5:28-29. The dead will hear his voice and rise, some to life, some to condemnation. The Bible will not let you hide behind denial, because denial doesn't protect you, it deceives you. Think of how often the world distracts you with its flashing lights, with calendars filled so full you barely stop to think. Yet all of that vanishes in a single instant, leaving one reality: where will your soul be? That's why this truth is urgent. If you imagine death as a cold wall, you will live in fear. But if you see it as a door, your entire perspective shifts. Eternity becomes the main stage, and this life the prelude. C.S. Lewis said it plainly. You don't have a soul, you are a soul. Bah! That means eternity isn't optional, it's inevitable. And once you know that, the smallness of earthly pursuits becomes obvious. Status looks hollow. Greed feels like smoke. Petty arguments lose their grip. Because when you step through that doorway, the only voice that matters will be the one calling your soul home or away. So you must ask, do you live like eternity is real? Do you carry within you the weight and wonder of forever? Because when your final breath comes, the question will not be how much you achieved, but whether you were ready to walk through the door with Jesus waiting on the other side. Number 2. Knowing the one who conquered death. You cannot prepare for death by yourself, no matter how strong your willpower, how pure your intentions, or how carefully you arrange your life. Positive thinking cannot shield your soul. Rituals, traditions, and moral effort cannot carry you across the valley of the shadow. Why? Because death is not just a biological event, it is a spiritual collision. And only one person in all of history has faced it head-on, shattered its grip, and risen with the keys of eternity in his hands. His name is Jesus. He did not sidestep death. He did not pretend it wasn't real. He walked into it knowingly, carrying the weight of sin, and 3 days later he rose. When he declared in John 11:25-26, I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me will live even though they die. He meant every word. He proved it by calling Lazarus out of his grave. That miracle wasn't a parable. It was a preview, and it's why you can stand before death without despair, because Jesus already opened the door. But here is where many stumble. They imagine that being a good person is enough. They assume that charity, kindness, or occasional church attendance equals readiness. Yet Ephesians 2:8-9 makes it clear, salvation is by grace through faith, not by works, so no one can boast. That means you could give away half your income, avoid every scandal, and still face eternity, unprepared if you do not know Christ personally. Salvation is not an achievement. It is a gift you receive by surrender. Think of the thief on the cross, moments from death. He had no resume of good deeds, no list of achievements to present. All he had was a cry, Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. And Jesus answered with immediate assurance, today you will be with me in paradise. That is grace. That is hope. That is what it means to prepare your soul, not perfection, but surrender to the one who conquered the grave. So here is the question you cannot ignore. Do you know him? Not just his story, not just his name, but the living Christ? Because when the final hour comes, your friends cannot walk with you, your parents cannot carry you, your achievements cannot shield you. Only Jesus can. And if you belong to him, the one who defeated death will meet you at the doorway and lead you home. Number 3. Living differently because eternity is real. If you believe that eternity is real, if you know that your soul will step beyond this world into forever, then something shifts inside you. You cannot live the same way. The awareness that your days are numbered and that every moment echoes into eternity rearranges your priorities. Suddenly bitterness feels too heavy to carry. Greed looks shallow, and grudges lose their flavor. You begin to live not as if this world is your final address, but as if you are passing through on your way home. Paul wrote it with breathtaking clarity in Galatians 2:20. I have been crucified with Christ, and I no longer live, but Christ lives in me. The life I now live in the body I live by faith in the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me. That is not a verse for decoration. It is a blueprint for a new way of living. When Christ is at the center, your soul is not paralyzed by fear of death. Instead, you wake each day with purpose. You live as someone freed from the tyranny of proving yourself, because you no longer live for applause or approval, but for God's glory. Peace becomes natural, not as a ritual of guilt, but as an act of freedom. You confess sin quickly, not to earn forgiveness, but because you already have it. You don't hide shame in the dark corners of your heart. You drag it into the light, where grace restores you. Like David in Psalm 51, you pray, "Create in me a clean heart, O God," not to feel better, but to walk closely with the God who loves you. And when life hurts, and it will, you endure differently. You do not sink under trials because you see them through the lens of eternity. Paul could write in Romans 8:18, "Our present sufferings are not worth comparing with the glory that will be revealed in us." That doesn't mean you ignore the pain. It means you know the pain will end. You see the horizon where every tear will be wiped away. So every act of kindness, every word of truth, every choice to forgive becomes a treasure stored in heaven. Even the smallest obedience echoes forever. That's the life of a soul awake, not obsessed with dying, but alive with purpose, knowing that every step prepares you to see Christ face to face. Number 4. Treasure that outlasts this world. When you step into eternity, nothing you have accumulated here will come with you. The house you worked for, the titles you earned, the money you saved, the applause you collected, all of it will stay behind. Jesus warned in Luke 12:15, "Watch out, be on your guard against all kinds of greed." Life does not consist in an abundance of possessions. He told the story of the rich man who built bigger barns to store his success, only to hear God's voice declare, "You fool, this very night your life will be demanded from you." That man had planned for comfort, but not for eternity, and all his wealth evaporated in a breath. This is why Jesus said in Matthew 6:19-20, "Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, but store up for yourselves treasures in heaven. Earthly treasure fades, eternal treasure lasts forever." And what is that treasure? It is not gold or jewels. It is every act of obedience, every expression of love, every moment of generosity done in His name. When you forgive instead of retaliating, when you serve without expecting anything in return, when you whisper a prayer for someone who may never know, you are sending treasure ahead. Even the smallest offering matters. For Jesus promised that even a cup of cold water given in His name will not lose its reward. This changes how you see everything. Success is no longer measured by what you own, but by what you release. Influence is no longer about who notices you, but about who meets Christ through you. Living for eternal treasure may look upside down in a world obsessed with upgrades and achievements, but it is actually right side up, because the applause of people dies with them, but the smile of your Father lasts forever. Paul described it in 2 Corinthians 4:17. Our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. He wasn't minimizing suffering, he was maximizing eternity. Every sacrifice, every loss, every moment lived for Christ was building something unseen but indestructible. And that is why you must ask yourself, where is your treasure? Do your choices show a heart tangled in this world or anchored in the next? For where your treasure is, There your heart will be also. Number 5. Be ready, for time is uncertain. No one knows the hour when their final breath will arrive. Death does not schedule itself on your calendar, does not consult your plans, does not wait until you feel prepared. It simply comes, sometimes slowly through illness, sometimes suddenly in an instant, and when it does, the only question that matters is whether your soul is ready. Jesus spoke about this urgency in Matthew 24 and 25, telling the parable of the 10 virgins, 5 wise and 5 foolish. When the bridegroom came at midnight, the prepared entered the feast, but the unprepared found the door closed. His words still echo, "Therefore keep watch, because you do not know the day or the hour." That is why procrastination is so dangerous. We love to push serious matters to tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll pray. Tomorrow we'll forgive. Tomorrow we'll surrender. But James 4:14 strips away the illusion. What is your life? You are a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. A mist, fragile and fleeting. You cannot gamble with forever on the assumption of more time. And readiness is not about perfection. It is about surrender. It is about a heart that trusts Jesus, that turns from sin quickly, that keeps short accounts with God. To be ready is not to be fearless or flawless. It is to know the one who holds eternity in his hands. When you belong to Christ, death no longer has the final word. It becomes a doorway into life, a last breath before the greatest awakening. But if you don't know him, if you've delayed, if you've buried yourself in distractions, then the most urgent decision of your life is waiting right now. Hebrews warns, "Today if you hear his voice, do not harden your hearts." Today, not someday, not later, because later may never come. Readiness is found in intimacy with Christ, in walking with him daily, in letting him hold your past, your present, and your future. So imagine standing before him at the edge of eternity. Will you hear, "Well done, good and faithful servant," or will you face silence? The choice is yours, but the time to choose is now. Now, as the last words settle, you can let the pace of your thoughts begin to soften. The urgency of truth remains, but the sharpness of its edge gives way to something gentler, like the fading light of evening that invites rest rather than fear. You have walked through the 5 truths: death as a doorway, Christ as conqueror, a new way of living, treasure that lasts, and the call to readiness, and each truth is pressed against your heart with weight. But here, as you linger in the quiet, you can let those truths become less like alarms ringing and more like steady lights guiding you home. You were never asked to carry eternity by yourself. You were never meant to prove yourself worthy or manufacture perfection. You were only ever invited to place your soul in the hands of the one who already crossed the valley and returned victorious. That invitation does not shout, it whispers. It whispers in the middle of ordinary days, in the space between your breaths, in the gentle tug that tells you there is more to life than what you can see. So rest in that whisper. Let your soul unclench from the frantic grasp of this world. Every burden you have held, the worries about tomorrow, the regrets of yesterday, can be set down in the presence of Christ. He does not greet you with condemnation, but with mercy, not with a list of your failures, but with scars in his hands that speak forgiveness louder than words. As you breathe in this stillness, picture eternity, not as a storm waiting to swallow you, but as a horizon opening wide, painted with the colors of a sunrise that never fades. You are not walking toward darkness, but toward light. You are not facing the unknown, but the arms of a Savior who calls you by name. So let the fear slip away. Let peace settle deeper than your bones. Your soul is eternal, and in Christ it is safe. And when the final moment comes, may you step into forever, not trembling, but smiling, knowing you are home.